Welcome back to my podcast, Filmmaking, Actually. Ta-da! Today, I wanted to go over something called soft skills and hard skills. This topic came up when I was discussing doing a trial for a position that involves technical skill. For example, we have new editors who come with us. We give them really old footage. It's from several years ago. It's from a social media reel that's already been posted. And we do it to evaluate their skills as an editor and make sure that they're able to professionally perform at the level we need. I have seen people who post job listings and they require like a trial period. That doesn't necessarily always make sense to me, especially if that trial period isn't being paid, but it's going to result in work actually being used by whoever is using the trial. So it brought up the subject of hard skills versus soft skills. Let me back up. So what are soft skills versus hard skills? So hard skills are the technical expertise in a specific field. For example, if you are a gymnast, the hard skills would be, well, everything. Gymnastics is hard. No, I'm just kidding. The hard skills would be the technical expertise for that level of gymnastics. If you are a chef or a writer or a painter, hard skills are like knowing how to mix colors, knowing how to mix ingredients, knowing what temperature to set your oven, knowing how to use computer software. Very specific technical skills for that specific area. Soft skills, on the other hand, are more like personality traits and general interpersonal skills. For example, being able to communicate clearly, being able to listen, learning how to build interpersonal relationships with your colleagues, how to work with a superior, how to work kindly and effectively with subordinates, being able to understand and manage your emotions in a potentially highly emotional situation, being able to adapt to change, problem solving, critical thinking, leadership, like things that aren't necessarily, I know how to bake a cake. Like you could be the best baker in the entire world, but if we put you in a bakery and you make everybody around you angry and you make everybody feel like crap and the customers hate you and you don't know how to keep your workspace tidy and it gets the bakery full of ants, like those are problems. And good managers know how to recognize in their team when someone has good soft skills and good hard skills. Sometimes it can be very tempting as a manager when someone's hard skills are phenomenal to kind of let them slide, but you have to look at the whole ramifications to the entire group and be like, all right, is it better to have 8 people making amazing cakes or one person making absolutely phenomenal, mind-blowing cakes while everybody else quits and your entire business shuts down because this one person is so toxic? Soft skills and hard skills when hiring are really important. And for us, when we do our internships, one of the things we focus on growing are soft skills. We had an intern once where part of their job as an intern was proofreading things. And the field that they wanted to go into involved being very conscientious of what you were putting out in written form. And proofreading as a skill was really important. When we gave them a task that involved proofreading, they refused. They said no. They were like, I'm not doing this. I'd rather you fire me than do this task. And I was like, okay. So one of the things that we try to do with the internships is make a space where people can have those conversations. What do you do when your boss says, I want you to do this task? And you're like, I literally would rather gouge my eyes out. How do you deal with that? And when you have a job, sometimes you have to do things you don't love. Obviously, I'm not talking about anything illegal or something that makes you physically uncomfortable or puts you in a dangerous situation. You know, there's things that we don't all love doing. And sometimes they just got to get done. How do you have those conversations? How do you find proactive ways of presenting a solution or alternative course of action to ensure that the required tasks get fulfilled without losing your job? Because telling your boss to go take a long walk off of a short pier into shark-infested waters while holding a raw steak might not do so well if you plan on keeping employment. Even for the benefits of those who are self-employed, where they are their own boss, you still usually have to be doing something where you are dealing with someone, whether it's a client, whether it's, a vendor. You have to know how to have those difficult conversations. For our internships, we try to make a space where we have a conversation of, okay, cool, let's talk about this. What might be some alternative ways to approach this situation? What options do you have for dealing with something like this? What's a good way to talk to a manager without telling them to shove it when you get given a task you don't want to do, especially when that task is literally part of your job and it's a very inherent part of the world that you're going to be working in. It also is an internship, which is a time to decide, this career path is not for me. I thought I wanted to do it. I started on this path and I learned I do not want to take this path. This is not the way I want to go. And that's fine. When you're hiring someone, when you are working for someone, the balance of soft skills and hard skills is really, really, really important. How you present those soft skills is also important. We've had people apply for us and their entire attitude during the interview process is, all right, I'm here. What are your other 2 wishes? And it's like, okay, we get it. Everybody brings value. That's fantastic. Sometimes having a little bit more space for collaboration and recognizing that you're part of a team can also be helpful, especially if you're starting at an entry-level position. So how does this relate to doing trials, like doing test runs? Personally, when we're hiring someone that requires hard skills, such as editing, we do give them a trial. Showreels are great, but we have no idea how good or bad that footage was before they edited it, as far as editing showreels go. And honestly, every other form of filmmaking can be drastically saved by an editor. You can have a bad acting performance that's made to look amazing. You can have crappy cinematography that's reframed, restructured, recut, reformatted. I mean, we've done it where we're given footage for a film, and by the time we're done with it, the cinematographer is nominated for best cinematography. Not kidding. We just can't tell. So we give this little piece to see. Another reason why we also check references if it's someone who we haven't worked with before or who we haven't worked with in a long time, because people change. Showreels, resumes, portfolios, it doesn't actually tell you soft skills at all. And without more information, you might not even be able to really tell hard skills. I'll use our test edit example because that is most relevant to what we do. And this is a filmmaking podcast, so I'm going to stick with a filmmaking topic. So we do this application process where we send over this footage. It's for less than 60 seconds, super simple social media reel. And once it's done, everything just gets deleted. What we're looking for really is the soft skills as much as the hard skills. We want to see how they do with deadlines, how they do with asking questions, how they do with asking for help, how they do with just general communication, how they navigate downloading and uploading footage, how they follow instructions, how they deal with receiving notes or feedback, how do they do with executing revisions. And we give everyone a revision. Even if the first one is phenomenal and flawless, we give them some notes and have them do something else with it, because those are all potential pipeline breakdown points. So it's really important to know that someone can work well through each part before investing the time and resources into onboarding them. Because if someone can't make a deadline, that doesn't work. Editing is probably one of the most tight deadline areas in most of the film production process. I think color, sound, and score and VFX get squished a little bit more, but sometimes editing has really, really tight deadlines. If people can ask questions or not, that is vital. You can have somebody spend a week working on a project, but they didn't understand something. And instead of just asking, they then do it completely wrong. And now you've got to fix it. And that's a waste of time. It's a waste of resources. Depending on the deadline, you could literally screw over an entire project. For that reason, asking for help is also really, really, really important. If you run into something, if you're having a problem, I know I keep talking about our internships, but that's one of the things that we make sure people understand. But I've had to do it with employees and staff and contractors too, where someone's struggling and I'm like, what's going on? And they're like, well, I know you're busy. I didn't want to bother you. Supporting my staff is literally my job. Bother me, like ask the questions. And we always make sure that, whoever's the lead on a project makes space for that. And if fine, yeah, when we're on set, don't run up to the director to ask them a random question that you have about some other scene when they're literally rolling camera on a different scene. But we do try to make time and space where questions can be asked and answered. And we'll always have even like an alternate person to talk to if you have a question and you can't access the director that exact second. General communication is really important. Understanding how to listen, understanding how to acknowledge people. For the editing, downloading and uploading footage, we're a remote company. So we have our team spread out around the country, sometimes around the world. And if you're not able to access the footage, we can't do anything. If you can't send it back to us, we can't do anything. Receiving notes, getting feedback, especially when you're doing something for hire, it's not about you. I can't tell you how many times I've seen comments in Facebook groups where people are like, the director didn't want my vision. And it's like, cool. This project isn't about your vision. It's about the director's vision. And I know that sucks. And I know that really great directors will listen to the vision of the people in their departments. But if that input isn't in alignment with the vision of the director is going to push you to go in a different direction. In a perfect world, everybody on the team sees that vision and is aligned with that vision, and everything they bring goes with that vision. But even then, they might option like, here's a this, here's a that, here's a this. And the director might be like, I don't like any of those. Let's do something else. I've directed dozens of films, and I know that there are times when I've been maybe not the most decisive person. And then there's other times where I've been very decisive and said, no, this is the direction we're going in. No matter where you are on the pipeline, your job is to contribute to the vision of that project. If you want to be the one in control of the vision, you should be the director, producer, etc. When you are contributing to someone else's vision, your job is to execute their vision. We've gotten direction from clients where they're like, oh, I really want to do this. And we're like, we'll give them our input and we'll tell them what we think and we'll give them some alternates. And sometimes they'll say, oh, that's a good idea, but I actually really want to do this. And we're like, okay, cool. As long as it isn't offensive or like going to hurt humanity, great. That's their vision. We gave them our professional input. They want to go in their direction. Awesome. It's their project. So being able to do that is a soft skill, and it's really important to know how, especially if you want to keep working with people in the future. And then obviously for our editors, executing revisions is important. Even if we're seeing show reels, like I said, even if we're checking references, we want to see how people do with us. Not everybody gets along, and that's okay. Not everybody's meant to be friends. You have to be, kind and respectful to people. Sometimes you get two different, totally like abrasive personality types. They come together and it is like water and raw calcium. It just explodes. And you're like, okay, cool. So you guys aren't going to work together anymore, but you don't want that. It's, it's not fair for the people in that situation. It doesn't help the company. It's just not beneficial. So you want to make sure that people vibe and gel and they're able to collaborate together and everything flows, basically. So having a job or a role isn't just about the technical skill. Soft skills can almost matter more. I know I personally would rather work with someone who's a little newer or someone who's a little less experienced, or maybe someone who isn't even as talented as someone else, if the someone else is going to be causing so much headache and chaos that it's just not worth it. We had a project once where we had one of the most skilled people that I've worked with in my life, who I respect professionally through the roof, but they were drinking on set. They were acting out. They literally screamed and cursed out the producer at one point. It was like pulling teeth trying to get anything done. And yes, their contributions to that project were great, like what they did actually contribute. But literally, we filmed the last day without them. Because we had to add a day because we were so far behind after dealing with everything being thrown off, trying to grind broken gears, that almost everybody else left. We had 2 people with us on set, just like the actors and like 2 crew. And we were able to shoot pages and pages of script. We just flew through it. And the footage still looked great. Everything still looked amazing. The smaller team had to scramble a little bit, but it was actually better without them. And that's always something important to keep in mind. Sometimes it's worth it. Having Marilyn Monroe on set when she was towards the end of her prime and struggling with everything, it was worth it to the producers to get that Marilyn Monroe scene done, even if it took all day. I will just throw in a general comment that if you are a producer, if you are somebody in a position of power and you're noticing that someone on your team is clearly struggling, have a conversation with them. That's also a soft skill, and human compassion, no matter where you are on the totem pole, it doesn't go away, and it actually becomes more important the higher you go. If you notice someone on your team seems burned out, if you notice they're not their usual selves, if you notice they're a little more contentious than usual, or they're making more mistakes than usual, you're their boss, you're not their therapist. Don't cross any professional lines and don't overstep. But you can also just check in and see how they're doing. That's also important. And just, maybe a project is causing them problem. Maybe it's something that has nothing to do with anything. Maybe they just need a day. And, maybe something's happening at home. And if they just had one day off to just go home and take care of it, you could have your incredibly performing employee back. Communication is important, I think, is what I'm trying to say. Like I said, I would rather help someone and work with someone who has amazing soft skills and help them grow their technique much more than deal with someone who's like a consummate professional when it comes to the skill, but they're just a nightmare to deal with, especially because of what it does to the team. It's just not worth it. For me personally, I say the only way to truly know soft skills is to see them. You can do things during the interview process, have conversations, talk to people. You can talk to references. But if it's possible to do a very quick little trial when it's something that requires advanced technical skill and very specific hard skills, when you do the hard skill test, keep an eye out for the soft skills also. And when you're applying to a job, when you're participating in a trial or a test or, something like that, keep in mind the soft skills. And it could be really simple. Like when we do our editing trial, we make it intentionally where there are problems. Like we bake it in where you have to ask us questions. And it's really interesting to see the way people respond. We'll get things like, I'm now going to know if our next round of editors has heard this podcast because I'm going to spoil one of the tests. Basically, one of the things we do is the link for the footage is broken. We know that it's broken. We set it up broken. We're trying to see how people deal with that. How do they respond? Do they just go, "Oh, sorry, couldn't do it," or do they reach out and say, "Hey, I'm not able to access the footage. Can you help?" Even the way people reach out is really, really, really interesting to just see. It's almost like an analysis of just general human behavior because people respond very differently. We'll get everything from like the one sentence, "Your link is broken. I can't access this, period," to the, "I'm so sorry. I'm trying to access the link. I'm not sure what I'm doing wrong. If you could please help me. Clearly I did something wrong. I don't know how to fix this. I don't know what I'm doing." I always encourage those people, like, it's okay to ask a question. It might not be your fault. You don't have to throw yourself under a truck. And then we just get the very basic, "Hi, so sorry, I'm trying to access the footage, but it seems like the link isn't working. Could you please point me in the right direction?" Some form of that, where they understand there's a problem, they're asking for help, they're not sure what's causing the problem, but they want to fix it. Honestly, those are my ideal responses. And it's a little rude when people are like, "You did it wrong." And it's like, wow. I mean, in this case, yes, we did. But there's also times where, outside of the trial, we're working with someone. We send a link, something's wrong on their download end, something's wrong with their browser, or they haven't cleared their cookies and they can't access it. Whatever, things go wrong. That's why we bake it into the trial. But just seeing the way people respond along the hiring process and seeing those soft skills versus those hard skills, it really helps find the people that we want to work with and who make a good part of our team. People who are able to communicate, who are responsible, who pay attention to detail, who clearly want to do the job. They want to do it right. They care about the finished product. That's not to say that every single person on our team has never made a mistake and they're all perfect and flawless. That would be weird. We're humans. But it's really easy to work with people who are trying and who are making an effort. And especially when we know that there's, we know our management team, we know our management style, and we know that we're going to be providing those same soft skills back. That's it. My quick little episode that ended up being a little longer than expected. But when people tell you, go work on set for free, go PA for free, go make a movie with your friends in your backyard, to succeed in the film industry, you need soft skills. And the only way you get them is by doing them, is by being out there, finding yourself in situations where you're like, whoa, How do I deal with this? What do I do about this? It's valid. Should you work for free on like some film starring Dean Cain and Kevin Sorbo? No, you should not, because clearly that project has money. And if people are getting paid and if people are making a profit, you should be getting paid and you should stand to get something out of that profit. But working on small indie projects, working on student films, getting together with people who are like just trying to get together and make something, getting experience, working with a company that's either newer or working on a smaller project, or I don't know. I mean, me personally, if Catherine Hardwick wanted me to carry coffee for her for free, I would do it. As long as I'm genuinely going to be able to shadow her and watch her and learn from her and have the space to learn and grow in that environment. If I'm just going to be like grabbing coffee and then standing in a corner and I can't see or hear anything, there's no value to that. But even in my career today, I would do that in a heartbeat because I'm always wanting to learn. I'm always wanting to grow. And I know the value of that learning and growth as a filmmaker. Don't turn up your nose at opportunities to grow your soft skills. Always, obviously keep growing your hard skills. And make sure that people have the space to grow their hard skills and their soft skills. And when you're in charge, make sure that soft skills are valued and are nurtured and are supported as well. There you go. That's that. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you next time.
You've been listening to Filmmaking Actually with Koura Linda, Space Dream Productions podcast. Subscribe to us on any or all the podcast platforms. If you like what you hear, leave us 5-star ratings and positive reviews on iTunes. It helps more listeners like you discover the show. But the best thing you can do if you really like the show is tell a friend. Want to leave a comment or ask a question? Email at filmmakingactually@gmail.com. This is Spacey speaking, and remember,
who's they?
The Xbox.
You're kidding!
No, I am not. And this ES RAM buffer should totally bridge the 100 gigabit per second bandwidth gap between the two RAM types.
This is a nightmare. How will you ever make a decision?
You see, I don't know. What should I do?
Please pass the butter!
and we'll see you next time.
Take it outside the school.